And hello, everybody. I'm Robert Adducci, and I am here with Timothy Brown. Welcome, Tip.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm well.
Is
I'm
everything
well.
good? Everything good in Arizona?
Yeah. Everything is good and warm as usual.
Right.
So we are here to talk about Ulysses World's news, talking about all things Ulysses, everything that's happened in the past week or two, and what will be happening in the future. So let's kick it off with the Dark Eye. So the Gods of Aventuria crowdfunding recently completed on Tuesday. We had 325 backers and over $65,000 raised. Some of that for Doctors Without Borders. I think there was 20 or 30 people that backed the special deluxe edition,
Right.
charity edition, where 100% of that content or 100% of the price went to Doctors Without Borders. So
We back a variety of great organizations, and one of those, of course, is Doctors Without Borders. And yeah, that's great. Thanks to everybody who contributed there. That's an awesome amount that we can provide that organization. Well done.
yeah, so you know, if you missed Ulysses online convention, which we had a couple of weeks ago, you can still catch the panels for the Dark Eye on YouTube. There were three panels. One was the Dark Eye, past, present, and future, which was Tayo talking about products that have come out before, what we're working on now, and what we're working on in the future. And then there was the Dark Eye for new GMs, where myself and Tayo kind of talked about how to best kind of get into GMing the Dark Eye and kind of what just some advice to help out. And then there was 30 Years of Lore, which was a great panel. I thought that had that featured Nikolai Hotch. Hotch, is that how you say his name?
Nico Hoch.
Yes, there you go. Much better German translation or German. And so it was Nico and Tayo talking about the lore and sort of like what important points of lore if you're just getting into it, and also some details for the old timers. So that was cool. I also recently did a flip through of the Gods of Aventuria PDF, which has not been released yet, but I just wanted to kind of do a little flip through to give people a preview of what they could expect, and that had pretty good viewership on Twitch, and you can now find that on YouTube.
Awesome. For the Aventuria adventure card game, which, as you know, is set in the same fantasy universe as the Dark Eye, the next crowdfunding for Aventuria card game products is targeted for late September, so that's coming up. And we're going to be putting up previews for that fairly soon. Right now, the tentative theme for that group is what? Extraordinary Heroes. Is that what we're leading up to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Eric Simon. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, just because there are a bunch of sort of solo adventures and just expansions so this crowdfunding is like a bunch of small products put together, and so you can have a bunch of heroes and variants, I think, on heroes as well.
Right, quite a bit of new stuff going on there. Again, during the Ulisses online convention, Eric was on and talked about the basics of deck customization for the card game, and you can catch that also on YouTube. So we'll put all these links up right after the show. Is that right, Robert?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Yep. I'll put them up today, and then the video will come up tomorrow.
Great.
So let's move on to Myth Dawn of Heroes. And Eric literally just sent me an email this morning letting me know that the world book for Myth Dawn of Heroes is now available on PDF on DriveThruRPG.
Oh,
so
great.
If you did not get a chance to be a backer for the World of Myth crowdfunding that we did a few months ago, you can now get this book. So it's got, it's a reprint and a remake of the World of Myth lore book. A lot of people liked that book, and a lot of people wanted it but missed it before.
Right.
And so we did another crowdfunding for it. But even if you have the old book, this book is different. This book has it's got more stories, more fiction in it. It's got a summary of all of the adventures, all of the old adventures, and so it's it definitely adds to the old book. So you can grab that on PDF if you have not gotten a chance. If you didn't get a chance to back it, and then at some point there will also be the physical sales. We're just kind of waiting for those to arrive in our warehouse.
We've got streaming content, of course, for the Dawn of Heroes game as well. Myth is coming along, and we've got things to show at the Ulysses online convention. Again, we had the demo rules were available, and we released all of that, so you can get the print and play or on Tabletop Simulator, and we'll have links up to that as well. Further, Eric and Robert played the Tabletop Simulator version on Steam during online Gen Con just this last weekend, and you can catch that video on YouTube as well.
Yeah. In the same world, Myth, there is Myth Tales of Legend, which is the role-playing game that Ross Watson and J.M. DeFogie are working on. Talking about demos for Myth release, we also released the Tales of Legend Quick Start on Drive-Thru RPG, so you can grab that if you want to try out our newest RPG. Today's show for the Campfire Chat will be at Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, where Ross and Jam will talk about different aspects of the game. Today's talk is about the setting book for the starter box.
Great.
And recently, I did a read-through of The Lost Barrow on the Ulisses Grab Bag show that I do. So over 2 sessions, I kind of read just read the adventure, really, and the adventure walks you through how to play. So we didn't read the rules specifically because so much of that is included in the adventure that you can, just walks you through how to play the game. So that was great.
Awesome. Now in Fading Suns, we have the Universe Preview PDF is out to backers along with the feedback form. You should have gotten a link via Drive-Thru RPG, so if you're a backer, check it out and let us know if there are any typos or anything you find in the preview PDF that seems a little off. Robert, if somebody didn't get their link through Drive-Thru that was expecting it, where should they look?
You can send us an email to crowdfunding@ulyssesspiel.de, and we'll get back to you. But yeah, you should definitely check out. Make sure that you have Drive-Thru RPG approved in your email list so that you always get those.
So tonight for Fading Suns at 5:30 Pacific time on Twitch, JM takes his group through the finale of the current Fading Suns arc called Curse of the Abandoned. So if you've been watching that, it's coming to a conclusion. I guess the group enters into the final confrontation with Ashkagale. Will their faith be enough, or will they burn in the fires of Phlegathon? And I'm not just reading that, people. I know that by heart. So find out about all of that tonight. And then I think every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific for Fading Suns, Bill Bridges and Andrew Greenberg still have their Heretical Musings show. Next week, we'll talk about the Universe book, which was released to backers for preview recently. That's what we just talked about. Mm-hmm. If you want to participate, be sure to read the first couple of chapters and get your questions ready.
Yeah, so I'm going to be taking over production for that show, and so that will give Andrew more time to sort of interact with the chat and really answer some questions, so he doesn't have to worry about the back end stuff. So that'll be fun.
Awesome.
So we've gone through quite a few of our product lines, and now we're going to step into Torg, and we would like to introduce as our guest today Leamon Crafton to the show. Welcome, Leamon.
Hey, Leamon. Welcome.
Hello.
All right. So Leamon joined the Ulisses freelance team after creating the Paraverse Infiniverse Exchange project. He's worked on various books as part of the Torg Eternity Tharkold crowdfunding and is currently working on the Wastelanders Survival Guide and Secrets of Kiev. Welcome, Leamon.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So how did you get involved professionally with Torg Eternity?
Because I was unprofessionally involved to begin with. I love Torg, the original Torg, and when Torg Eternity started getting mentioned online, I was kind of listening to what was going on and was liking what I was hearing. So then I signed up for the crowdfund that they had for the original big box set. And I liked it. I also liked Old Torg. So I was trying to figure out taking the one and putting it with the other. When I asked about the Infiniverse Exchange, they said that it can only convert one way. So you can convert from Old Torg to New Torg, but you can't convert from New Torg to Old Torg. Mm-hmm. So I decided, okay, well, then that's what I'm going to do. And I was going to do just a little thing of a couple of alternate setting ideas, but then I just decided to do the whole thing. So I made a really big, I think it's like 120 pages or so.
Yeah.
Basically an alternate Cosmverse for people like the old and they like the new and they want to have some options, then they can take a look at that. So once I did that, I was contacted by Deanna, and she asked if I was interested in writing Relics of Power Redux, and I said yes, and now I
Nice.
have this.
Yeah. Nice.
That has my name in it.
I
That's
love
awesome. So, tell us about the process of working on that massive Infiniverse Exchange project.
Right.
Uh, Basically, I was just when Torg Eternity came out, it was just the main core book, so it didn't really get into depth with cosms, and it couldn't have. I mean, it just that would have been impossible to try to stuff every source book into the core book. So I knew certain things were probably going to be released, but they might not be released right away. So I kind of wanted to fill those gaps for a while until the official product came out. So I wrote things like a weird science take for Weird Scientist and Nile, and magic item enchantments for Isle, and certain things like that. Now that most of the source books are done, now I can go back, look to see what's created officially, and then I plan on updating it at some point, and then just for anybody who's already bought it, it'll be a free upgrade, but it'll also be pertinent to anybody who's does anything with Torg. So
Nice. So like, I mean, talking about, creating an alternate reality, another alternate reality, I would think that a lot of people would kind of be happy with, a few pages on each kind of each cosm, but you seem to, I mean, like you said, this is like a 123-page book. How did it get so massive?
just I wanted it to be a little different than both the original Torg and Torg Eternity. And my personal campaign, the way, pre-internet, or at least pre-internet shopping easy, it was hard for me to get a lot of the source books. So I had to come up with a lot of my world on my own. And then once the source books were available, I was like, nothing I did matches any of this. So when Torg Eternity came out, I was thinking I want to offer something different. For people who like some of the old Torg things, who like the new Torg things, or just want a different world but are afraid to break free. So it's kind of like a stepping stone if you want to see something a little bit different. So I just I had a whole 25 years of backstory that I was able to plant into that and go off of. Plus, I thought the Torg Eternity was interesting with Quinn Sebastian, who kind of lived Torg, the original, and has this knowledge. And I thought, what would happen if it was reversed? If, say, the Gaunt Man had the knowledge. So that's kind of where my Paraverse, it's kind of like a worse scenario, because the Gaunt Man has,
thanks.
Okay, here's the prominent Storm Knights that are here, so I need to get rid of them before, they even have a chance of transforming. And it also was they had a 25-year window. They watched the old tour kind of unfold, and then they could use that knowledge with their invasion. So it's kind of a little more desperate even than Torg Eternity.
Nice. What are some of the things that are kind of like a larger departure from either old Torg or new Torg that you have implemented?
I kept the land below, but I actually had it get Central Africa. In my version, instead of it actually being the land below, Barak Ka had taken over areas of Africa, and then Mobius had dropped his reality bombs. And instead of them just becoming Nile Empire axioms for a while, they kind of fused with the living land and burnt out the axioms, but kind of left that area as a mixed zone that became its own kind of zone that doesn't have stele, doesn't have a high lord, but it has its own realities. So I kind of introduced that. In my campaign originally, Azteca, in the High Lord of Earth book that came out, my party only half succeeded. They thought that they completely succeeded, and then they left, and the Darkness Device just came back and got a new High Lord and took over. So Azteca is there. And just a couple of the major NPCs I kind of linked together. Like I said, there was a lot of information I didn't have for Old Torg that I kind of made up. And then when new information comes in and it's like, well, I like this, but it doesn't quite fit mine. So I have to, merge an NPC or take this person's background and add it to this other person. So there's a lot of that can be seen.
So for folks not familiar with Azteca, can you describe that? Because that's not been updated.
Not out yet.
Eternity.
Yeah. Right. Basically, I want to say it was one of the first adventures in the Old Torg line there was a darkness device that kind of had amnesia. It was kind of a darkness device that later on it was stated that the Gaunt Man and Hecaton had went up against it, and it was a little off to begin with, and it basically came to Earth. And when it hit there, it kind of didn't understand what it could do, but it kind of understood some of its own power. So it started corrupting in the way darkness devices work. And that was kind of like what is supposedly given a lot of Aztec culture, the blood sacrifices and things like that, and making stele, but not actually using them to bend reality. It still kind of understood stele were important, but it didn't understand why. So it kind of brought that aspect out. And then when all the other reality invaders come modern day and start taking over, a person links up with this darkness device, and it kind of realizes who it is, but it also kind of liked the Aztec Empire that it had kind of influenced. So it had basically taken its place amongst the deities. And I'll probably butcher this name, but Huitzilopochtli was the darkness device. And then the High Lord was Quetzalcoatl. And so they kind of like took that aspect upon themselves. So I brought that, basically just plopped that right into my Paraverse and expanded it. So it takes a lot of Mexico down to Belize.
That's awesome. So you have a lot of experience, obviously, running Torg for a long time and kind of dealing with one of the problems that a lot of RPGs, I think pretty much every RPG has, and I don't know if it's really a problem. Maybe it's a feature. It's just the issue of, once the designers write a thing, and then you run the thing, it sort of diverges even just in that. And then if the writers put something else out that sort of conflicts with what happened in your game, you've got to sort of either decide to use that information or to not use it or what have you. So it sounds like that's pretty much exactly what this Paraverse is. It's another reality. And Leamon, along with Daryl Hayhurst, did a panel called Making Torg Eternity Your Own. That was on Ulisses Online Convention, and so that is now available on YouTube. So you can go check that out. We'll put the link in the notes. And this massive project that Leamon created through the Infiniverse Exchange gave him a lot of experience on how to write for the Infiniverse Exchange, and so him and let's see who else was in that. The Greg Gordon did the panel that writing for the Infiniverse Exchange Ulisses Online Convention as well. So what else have you written? So you did the Redux, what is it called?
Relics of Power Redux.
Yeah, Relics of Power Redux. What else have you written for us for Torg?
After that, for the Relics of Power Redux, I wrote the Tharkol chapter, which is interesting because me and the other two writers of that Nathan Smith, and I think the other one, Craig Shackleton, maybe. We were basically said, here's where we want them to be. You guys decide where you want it. And in Old Torg, my favorite cosm was Isle, but Nathan, he lives in England. So I was like, I can't do this because I'm just going to mess things up. So I was like, by my own experience, having been to Russia, I should do Tharkold, the Tharkold section. So once that was brought out, then they were like, hey, what about Tharkold? And I was like, I'm very interested.
Nice.
So then when that wave came out, I wrote basically the Blood on the Blasted Lands was broken up into 3 authors. I was one of those, Brian Reeves and John Watson being the other 2. And then I wrote a little bit about life in Tharkold for the source book, as well as kind of some looking through it and giving my views on, names and culture and stuff like that, which a lot of it was spot on to begin with. And I did some of the archetypes. And then when the level up, they call it, in Game On tabletop, the goal was met for the Wastelander survival guide. I was brought on board to help do some of that. So that's what I've been doing.
So tell us about the Wastelander survival guide. What is that exactly?
Basically, there's kind of originally there was 2 parts of Tharkold. There were the Stele bound areas of Tharkold, and then there was an area of mixed zone between Tharkold and Core Earth, which happened when Russia sent a nuclear bomb to blow up the Maelstrom Bridge, and it spewed radiation and occult tech parts and reality all over the north of Russia, European Russia. And that kind of formed what was known as is known as the Blasted Land. And then the part that was under Stele was kind of just normal Tharkold realities. After Crenad was assassinated, then Thracian went up into that blasted area, and about half of it he's put Stele on. So now there's unbound blasted lands, which is just the mixed zone of strange stuff. And then there's bounded Stele within the other half of the blasted lands. And then the area that's mostly Volkov and Jezreel of just bounded Stele. So kind of, there's various factions and geographies of the blasted lands. And if you have to put a kind of a genre of what is the blasted lands, it's Mad Max in the summer and Mad Max on snow in the winter.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of the aspects I really like about Tharkold is the whole Mad Max, crazy vehicles and kind of gangs roving around. That I think is really cool. Right. And if you want to hear more about that, I did an interview with Leamon and Brian Reeves all about the common threats of the Blasted Lands, and that's on YouTube right now as well. So we'll put that link up. And so you said you've also worked on or are working on Secrets of Kiev. What can we expect from that?
In Blood on the Blasted Lands, one of the acts takes place in Kiev, and there was some space at the end of the book, and I wanted people to be able, if they wanted to get more in depth, either before or after or even during that act, and they wanted more information, I put basically a Secrets of Kiev together to be, hopefully, I think it's going to be attached to the back of that adventure book. So it gives game masters kind of like what's been going on. And like I said, if the game master wants to, they can use that to plan a pre-Blasted Land, Blood on the Blasted Lands adventure, so that they can kind of set up this city so the knights might be familiar with it. Or if the knights go through it and then come back later, then it has information that would be pertinent for adventures there. So it's different areas of the city. That city is heavily being fought over by Jezreel and Volkov. So kind of like what the different factions are doing, what to expect, and things like that.
Nice. So you said that you were working on updating the your Paraverse project. Are you gonna kind of do that as we go? Or are you gonna wait till all of the kind of main cosms are out before you fully update that?
I was going to do it as it went, but then I got asked to start writing officially. So I figured, that takes precedence. That's the more
Right.
important thing. And if I wait till the end, then I won't be thinking about making perks or rules that then actually have an official version of it. So
Right.
I want to see what's out there. So then when I make my own, it'll be unique and different, and that gives people more choices instead of just a rehash or a different take on the same thing.
Nice, yeah. So
Hey, I tend to step in.
yeah.
And I live in the past. My friends all know that. I'm always curious where you got your start with Torg and how maybe you got into gaming. I mean, when you got into the original edition way back when, what were the circumstances? Were you already a gamer? Tell us about that a little bit.
I was already a gamer. I've been gaming probably since I was 11 or 12, and I'll admit my first games I hated because we're all dumb 11, 12-year-olds, and the game master was horrible, even though he was also 11 or 12 at the time.
Right.
And it was just like, well, this is kind of dumb. And then I got interested in books and a cartoon series at the time, and they had a role-playing game, and I was more looking for information for that series. And then I'm like, oh, this is how role-playing is supposed to be.
What was the series?
Robotech.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, awesome.
So that kind of got me into role playing, and then I branched out into fantasy, and I was really big into fantasy for a long time. And then I got involved when I went to university at Purdue. They had a fantasy club, and I was there, and that met every Saturday night. But a bunch of the people from that club were gamers, and you just can't game one night a week, So we opened up other nights, and different ones of us were game mastering, and one of them was like, hey, you want to do this game I got called Torg? And everybody's like, well, what's this thing? So we got into it, and it was interesting. And from that point, I realized how easy it was as a player, because all you have to know is your own cosm, your own reality, and how difficult it could be for a game master, because they have to know every reality and especially in old Torg, where every reality had its own rules and how they mix.
Right.
So there was, I was an Eilish priest of Dunad, and there was a cyber papal Templar and an Aurorish priest, and Isle mage and things like that, but I didn't have to worry about any of their rules. And then later on, I found it was in a used section of my local role-playing shop. They had a Torg box set. And so I bought that used, and I think it was might have been missing some pieces. So then I read that and wanted more. So then I actually bought the full box set. And since then I have game mastered.
No, that's great. What a great history. So do you keep in touch with some of your original 11-year-old friends, or some of your college friends that you play with still? Or
my college friends, about half of those are currently in my Torg Eternity groups.
Awesome.
So, yes.
Nice.
Their original Torg characters have been retired officially, but they're kind of the high leveler, ones. So they're the old characters are giving their new characters orders.
Nice. And you run Torg quite a bit on Roll20 these days, right?
Yes, I have 2 games that I run every other week, but they both occur on the same weekends, Friday nights and Sunday nights. So tomorrow and Sunday will be my 2 games.
Awesome.
And how for those games, that's basically like in your Paraverse, in your Paraverse setting.
Yes.
And both of them, are they like concurrent games? Like, are they happening at the same time? Do they affect each other?
Oh, yes. That's what I also loved about Torg. And I even did it with old Torg. I had at one time 3 different groups. Mm-hmm. And on Halloween, we would all meet at like a cabin in the woods, and we'd role play for an entire weekend.
Nice.
And normally I'd come up with a Torg adventure where it was kind of like the crossover shows that,
Right.
happen now, or
Yeah.
even back then when you had your special guest star.
Yeah,
So
right.
sometimes one person from a group would come to the other group, and it's like, tonight guest stars such and such. And so I've always done that, and I continue to do that. So it's a great way to keep things consistent, and then I only have to think about one world.
Nice, yeah. So what's going on in your campaigns right now? Who are the big bads, and what are the characters doing?
Right now the characters are going on. They're kind of doing the power relics of power redux, twisted to fit my world. And they're on the part where there's kind of a break that can be days or months. So I'm actually sending that group into a version of the Fires of Ra Nile adventure. And for the other group, I'm testing out a theory on beta clearance level adventures with large number of alpha level players. So I have 8 players in that group.
Wow,
cool.
They're straight. I think they went through 1 act, so they're at like 5 XP, but they're going through the beta adventure Unhallowed Data. So that I wanted to see if, and it's so far it seems to work, where if you have 8 players of low, alpha, they can go through a beta adventure just because of the number of resources.
Sure.
Nice.
But one of the things, like you said, I have to look at with Fires of Ra, the very first scene is in Venice, Italy, which in Torg Eternity is core Earth, but in my game, the cyber papacy has taken over that area. So immediately I already have to start thinking, okay, I have to make this cyber papal instead of core Earth.
Tell us about running games online. Like, what have you felt like that worked well, and what have you had to kind of maybe modify out of Torg to make it work well online?
Torg actually works very well online. I've got the pleasure 3 times so far to actually play and not have to game master. So since 1993, I've played Torg 3 times. And they've all been under Torg Eternity. When people do Theater of the Mind, that works fine, whether it's online or in person. There's a great way that I use Roll20 that uses the cards that I believe the nickname of the guy was GM Matt, and he came up with a great video to show people how to make decks and how to use the cards, and I've worked with them, and it works really well. My own games, I use Grid, which is really strange because when I did Old Torg, I only used Theater of the Mind, and when when we were meeting in person, we did Theater of the Mind. But as soon as I got onto Roll20, everybody wanted grids for whatever reason. The only rule that needs to be modified that I found from the actual Torg Eternity rules are the blast rules, because they're kind of vague. It's kind of like you hit a blast and it's going to affect up to this many people or this many enemies plus any of your allies in that area. And when you're looking at a map that you're measuring meters, it kind of like doesn't quite fit. But over the last 2 years, I've come up with a pretty good blast template that I give the players that they can put their small, medium, large, etc. blasts over, and it just affects everybody. Nice. But that is actually the only rule that I've had to adapt to Roll20. So I mean, it's great.
And for those of you who haven't played Torg, blasts happen a lot.
Yes.
So what is have you noticed anything like different as to either the way you run the game or the way players play, aside from, like you said, once you went to Roll20, players really wanted to use the maps. So has there been anything else that's been sort of like, oh, this is different, just being just in the medium of being online versus in person?
The only thing really, and it's doesn't have to do with Torg, it's pretty much any game, is figuring out how the character sheet works, because it has automatic buttons to hit. So that takes a little while to get used to. The other thing is adding the dice automatically is very nice.
Yeah.
But there is that little feeling that when you're not actually rolling physical dice, that's kind of like the quote that one of my players did on his first roll. He did like a natural. I think it was a 74. It was crazy. You know, he just hit it, and the dice exploded. 74, play to glory. Everybody was, you know, jumping up and down, excited about it. And he's like, that was so cool, but just imagine how it would have been if I was actually physically rolling dice.
Right.
And there's kind of that aspect that's lost. But storytelling wise, it's just more front end on the game master, instead of just holding up a book and saying, hey, here's the person that you see, the NPC, or here's the town map. You have to, you know, either have it as an art file or make it into an art file and then put it into Roll20, make a handout or a background. So there's just the little extra steps. But that's more of a game master side of things. Once the players see it, you know, they see it normally on their screen, just instead of being physical.
Yeah, and we are working to make that even easier. We are working right now on Fantasy Grounds and then eventually Roll20 to get all of our content on both of those platforms and more, depending on what people want. And so that will be, you know, so if you buy the adventures via your favorite virtual tabletop, you'll just be able to pull those up. So there will be hopefully less work for the GM on the front end, because we'll have all those out there. So one of the things that I think, you know, I've been playing online for probably 5 years now, and I totally agree with you. Like, the one big thing that we're missing is our physical dice rolls. But I've seen D6s as like Bluetooth D6s that you can roll, and they even have a D20 version of it. Like, you can put the little D6 in the big D20, but it's big. It's like this big. It's like, you know, it's like the size of a baseball. And so that's a little cumbersome. But, you know, I'm sure it will shrink down at some point, and then we'll be able to roll our dice that will just be connected via Bluetooth to the computer, and it'll be, you know, I'm sure at some point that'll happen. I'm excited.
I might actually buy new dice for that.
Yeah, right. But they'll be expensive. It'll be like $100 set of dice.
Oh yeah.
But I'm excited for that. Yeah, because I play online a lot right now, and that's literally the only thing that I'm missing. I'm playing in a game which I rarely get to play in games myself, and I'm playing in a Dark Sun game run by my friend, and we're rolling physical dice during that game. So even though it's online, we're still just, you know, we're not really using a virtual tabletop for a lot of stuff. We're still using, we just roll our physical dice, and that's been fun. It's been the first time I've rolled physical dice in months.
Right.
So
that's awesome to hear about. Your gaming sounds incredible, and I think anyone would love to be a part of it. So you're very lucky to have these groups and these games running. So it sounds great. Well done.
Yeah, it was done out of necessity about four years ago. I think I had a Sunday group that met every week, and the people that hosted it, my friends from college, they moved to a different state, and it's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, hey, let's do Roll20. So
totally.
Now we still meet every Sunday. It's just online instead of in person.
And do you guys use the video, or are you just audio? Like,
just audio.
Yeah.
Okay. It works.
Yeah, I think like when I run games, I try to at least do video for myself, so that way the players can see me. And obviously, if everybody can do video, it probably works a little bit better. But you know, sometimes people have bandwidth issues, or there's storms, or who knows what. That stuff gets knocked out, and so we kind of just go back to just audio, and that's sufficient. But I really like, you know, for getting the around the table feel as much as possible. You know, video has been instrumental for that. Like the groups that I have, you know, once kind of COVID hit and we started playing online, it is nice to kind of just see the faces of your friends, you know.
Well, I know that we offer as part of our streaming, we've got a pretty good online many video experience going on with the Four Horsemen game that is being run by JM every Tuesday at 5:30 Pacific. You can find that on Twitch. That's got everybody playing, including Ross Watson, who's one of the Torg Eternity designers. He's one of the players as well. Yeah. Something else you can do for Torg is the How to Be a Great DM, which can you tell us about that, Robert?
Yeah, so Guy Slanders at How to Be a Great GM, he recently put up several videos about Torg. The most recent one was about adventure creation for an upcoming actual play that he's doing with us. So he's going to have him and 3 players, and they're going to run through an adventure of his creation. And that last video that he did was kind of walking through like what he's doing for that adventure. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, so I don't know how spoilery it will be, but definitely check that out. If you're a GM, I'm sure he's got a lot of great insights to GMing any games, and then he's really been digging into Torg Eternity. His initial video was sort of like an overall review, and then he did a review about, or a lore review about the Cosms, and then one about the Delphi Council and like how to use those as a GM. So you can expect more from How to Be a Great GM. I think a lot of people are seeing those videos, which we really like, and I think he just puts out really great content. And so we're definitely going to be working more with him to get more content about Torg and the Dark Eye. He's doing Dark Eye content as well. So stepping back real quick, the Four Horsemen JM's group, they just got into Tharkold, so they're starting Tharkold this next week. And if you missed the Tharkold crowdfunding, that is now available as a late pledge, and so you can get on that, and you can still back it. It goes through August 25th, 2 p.m. Pacific, so jump on that. Some people have been getting their Cyber Papacy books in the mail, so if you back that, be on the lookout for those. And for those of you that want the Cyber Papacy PDFs, they should be available to the general public on DriveThruRPG by the end of September. So things are starting to come out.
Well done. I love it.
Yeah. So, Grey March said the actual play is already up. Oh, I missed that. Yeah. So I guess that would have been Tuesday. I'll go look at that. Yeah. So for the How to Be a Great GM actual play, it's saying is already up. I will definitely have to go watch that. Thank you for that. So I think that's about going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you, Leamon, for joining us. Where can folks find you online if they want to pick your brain about the Infiniverse Exchange or Torg Eternity?
The best place actually is, I'm old fashioned, is just email.
What?
Are you you're on the Discord, aren't you? Did I see you on?
I am. I do show up on the Discord. So yeah, you can drop me something on Discord. I can't remember what my number is, but it's Leamon, and then in parentheses my online nickname Zor Volachan. So that's probably a good way.
Yeah, so you can go to our Discord and go into the Torg Eternity chat, and you can find Leamon in there. So thanks for watching Ulisses World Show. If you'd like to chat more with Ulisses, as we were just talking about, please join our Discord community. We've got channels for all of our games. We've also recently added an Infiniverse channel. So if you want to talk to Leamon or anybody else about how to create content for the Infiniverse Exchange, or give ideas, or if you have a new product and you want to tell everybody about it, go in there and post about it. You can do that. We've also got like looking for group channels. So if you want to find a Torg game, if you want to find a Dark Eye game or what have you, you can post as a player or a GM in those channels to hook up with others to play online. And if you'd like this show, please follow and subscribe to our channels on Twitch and YouTube, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss anything. So for Ulisses Spila, I'm Robert Adducci, and this is Tim Brown and Leamon Crafton. Thank you for watching. Come back next.
Bye-bye.
Come back next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific for more Ulisses Worlds. Bye-bye.